Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And these days, it's exceedingly hard for any new superhero media to stand out. Because if it's not related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, an extended cut directed by Zack Snyder, or some animated feature involving Batman or Spider-Man, it faces a really uphill battle. Now for fans of all things superhero, that's a good and bad thing. It's good that it shows just how big the genre has gotten over the past few decades. Superheroes are no longer seen as a gimmick or a passing fad. They're a real, legitimate force in the pop culture landscape, much to the chagrin of the Bill Maher's and Martin Scorsese's of the world. The only downside is that the market is more crowded than it has ever been before. From movies to TV shows, live action and animated, there aren't a lot of uncharted domains left. But that doesn't mean a superhero franchise can't find a way to shine in its own unique way. And that's exactly what Invincible, an animated series based on the comic by the same name, manages to achieve. But it's the way in which it achieves this that makes it so special, especially in the context of the current cultural zeitgeist. I would even go so far as to say Invincible came out at just the right time. But to understand why, I'd like to give a full review of the first season, as well as some general reactions and insights. Now, as a result, there will be a few spoilers. And I've got to warn you, some of those spoilers are a bit brutal. If you've seen the latter episodes or have read the comics, you know what I mean. I'll try to keep the more gruesome details to a minimum, but I want to offer that warning. Because this is a show I highly recommend watching, even if you're not familiar with the source material. Now personally, I have read the comics. They're written by Robert Kirkman and drawn by Ryan Ottley. While Kirkman may be best known for his work on The Walking Dead, I strongly believe that Invincible is still the better story. The overall premise is simple and familiar, at least in the beginning. Mark Grayson is the son of Deborah Grayson, an ordinary human woman, and Nolan Grayson, better known as the hero Omni-Man. And Omni-Man is a hero very much in the mold of Superman, in that he's one of the most powerful and celebrated heroes in a world that already has plenty of them, as well as plenty of villains to fight. But whereas Omni-Man is a Viltrumite, this race of advanced humanoid aliens who travel from planet to planet, offering help and protection, Mark spends much of his early life as an ordinary human. But he knows his father is a world-famous superhero, and the idea of ever living up to that is daunting, more so than most teenagers with famous fathers. But all of that changes when his Viltrumite side manifests at 17, and while working a part-time job at a fast food restaurant, no less. Naturally, Mark's life changes considerably after that. He suddenly has all these powers in the mold of Omni-Man, and also like his father, he aspires to become a superhero, eventually taking the name Invincible. Now this may sound like a cookie-cutter plot from a standard superhero narrative, but make no mistake, Invincible is not that kind of story. In fact, the first few episodes of the show do a hell of a job baiting you into thinking that you know how this story is going to play out. But trust me, you don't. I would even argue that this show does a better job than the comics at establishing what Mark is in for in his unique superhero journey. Within the first 15 minutes of the first episode, we see Omni-Man and the strongest heroes of this world at their best. They call themselves the Guardians of the Globe, and while many of them come off as Justice League knockoffs, they still carry themselves as we've come to expect from our greatest superheroes. When monsters attack the White House, they swoop in and save the day. And Omni-Man is by far their heaviest hitter. It all seems so familiar, and for someone like Mark, it's almost mundane. But once his powers manifest, he's suddenly part of this world. And it's also fun and exciting at first. Mark reacts to having superpowers the same way you'd expect of any 17-year-old. He's so excited and idealistic. And again, you think you know where this will take him. But within that same first episode, things take a dramatic and brutal turn. Suddenly, the Guardians of the Globe are brutally slaughtered. And by slaughtered, I don't mean in the standard PG-13 sort of way. I'm talking bloody, messy, R-rated violence the likes of which you'll never see on a Saturday morning cartoon or even a standard MCU movie. And Omni-Man is at the center of it all, in more ways than one. But this level of violence isn't just for the sake of spectacle. It helps set a unique tone for Invincible and the world around these characters. Yes, this story is very much a superhero story, but but it's one that highlights the more brutal realities of that journey. Within that journey, you will see innocent people suffer terrible wounds and die horribly. You will see superheroes do some very unheroic things for all the wrong reasons. And you will see nefarious government agencies do all the things you would expect from nefarious governments. But unlike other shows like Watchmen or The Boys, this is not some satirical deconstruction of the superhero genre. Invincible never tries to make the case that all superheroes are bad or that nobody should ever aspire to be a superhero. It just makes the case that this process is harder, bloodier, and more dangerous than we could possibly imagine. And Mark himself is guilty of thinking that his superhero journey can follow that of other great heroes. He's a lot like Spider-Man in that he's a teenager, trying to navigate both his superhero life and his personal life, which includes school, girls, and everything in between. And he's also like Robin to Omni-Man's Batman, learning under this powerful mentor's shadow and trying to measure up to his greatness. But when the time comes to actually be the superhero he wants to be, he finds out it's way harder than he thinks. In episode 2, Mark gets his first real taste of superhero action. His father is out of commission and the Guardians of the Globe are dead. So when a hostile alien race starts invading his city, he dons his new Invincible persona, costume and all, and tries to swoop in to save the day. Spoiler alert, he gets his ass kicked. A lot. And there's also a lot of collateral damage along the way. A lot of it involves some innocent humans, and while Mark does make an effort to save them, it's not nearly enough. And this is also where Invincible's supporting cast comes in through the Teen Team. While some do come off as a Teen Titans knockoff, they do quickly distinguish themselves, especially characters like Robot and Adam Eve. These young heroes, despite having more experience, also falter considerably. Even though they win the day, they're clearly not as capable as Omni-Man or the Guardians of the Globe. And that's a problem. It's a big problem with tragic ramifications, all of which steadily play out over the course of the show. And if there's one underlying theme of this show, at least with respect to the first season, it's that being a superhero is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the well-adjusted or idealistic either. You have to be a little angry, jaded, and damaged to get anything done. Sometimes that means the people you love and trust will stand in your way. That also means that sometimes people who seem trustworthy will break that trust. And in most cases, it also means you're going to face a world of pain when things go wrong. And when things go wrong often, well, this is where Invincible gets a little dark. Not Watchmen level dark, but still pretty damn dark. Because while Mark is trying to become the best superhero he can be, there's still the matter of who killed the Guardians of the Globe. It's a mystery that Cecil Stedman of the Global Defense Agency, basically this world's version of S.H.I.E.L.D., want to uncover. Now, Cecil is no Nick Fury, but he's no Lex Luthor either. And his role in uncovering the truth, as well as that of Mark's mother, Deborah, helps set the stage for this show's most defining moments. It all unfolds while Mark is still trying to find his way towards being a better superhero. Whether he's protecting astronauts from aliens on Mars or helping Titan, a superpowered man living in the ghettos, defeat a local crime boss, he keeps trying to do the right thing. He keeps trying to fight the good fights. But things keep taking nasty turns every step of the way. He keeps running into battles he can't win. He keeps needing his father or the Teen Team to save him, which often adds to the collateral damage. Even when he tries learning and training with his father, he just can't measure up. It gives the impression that this kid is not ready. It also makes clear that he needs support and guidance from his father. What Mark wants for himself is understandable and even respectable, and seeing him fail so often gets downright disheartening. There's really never a sense that he deserves this, or that he's arrogant or unfit to be a superhero. He has the mindset and the spirit of many other great heroes like Superman or Captain America. But then, just when he's at his most vulnerable, things somehow get worse for him. He, and the rest of the world for that matter, finds out who killed the Guardians. It was Omni-Man, his own father, the world's greatest hero. And he wasn't being mind-controlled or anything. He did it willingly, callously, and mercilessly. And on top of all that, he lied to everyone about it. including to his wife and to Mark. Now, in the comics, this was a big deal, one that took a while to build towards. But this show managed to pull that off in the span of a single season. That alone is a hell of an accomplishment. But it's the sheer dramatic impact of this moment that makes Invincible stand out from its superhero brethren. It all comes to a head in the final episode of the season. And if nothing else, this episode acts as the ultimate point of divergence between Invincible and your standard superhero narrative. Here, we see Mark angrily confronting his father, who unloads on him this onslaught of harsh truths about him, about the Viltrumite Empire, about humanity, and his purpose on Earth. None of it is pleasant. None of it is all that heroic either. Because in this same instant, Omni-Man goes from being the ultimate hero of this world to its greatest threat. Now, it would be short-sighted to call him an outright villain, given what happens in the comics, but he still sounds like one here. He basically tells Mark that humans are just a bunch of wild animals who haven't been domesticated yet. Their lives are short, messy, and meaningless. Saving them would barely make a difference in the grand scheme of things. And that's why he and the Viltrumites are there. They're going to do the domesticating, just as they've done with countless other worlds. That means a lot of people will still suffer and die, but he still frames it as something that's for the greater good. But achieving that greater good will come at a cost. Some of that cost will include human lives. And Mark is destined to witness a lot of that death. If not by conquest, then by humans just having such shorter lifespans compared to his. But what makes these revelations so dramatic and painful is that Omni-Man never sounds hateful or callous when he says them. Yes, there is some pain in his words, one that voice actor J.K. Simmons brings to life masterfully, but we really get the sense that he wants his son to understand. He doesn't want to fight Mark, but he's willing to, because that's what Viltrumites are supposed to do. But for Mark, it's just devastating in every way possible, finding out that his father isn't the hero he thought he was. That this is now part of his legacy, being the son of a race who seeks to conquer Earth. Naturally, he lashes out in anger. But there's no sudden twist that helps him win the day. No deus ex machina that comes in to change everything. No power surge that helps him defeat his father. Because, and I know I've already said this, but it's worth saying again, Invincible is not that kind of superhero story. Ultimately, it's Omni-Man who ends the fight. And the way it happens is nothing short of gut-wrenching. I won't spoil it. I'll just say it's one of the most pivotal moments in both the show and the comics. It makes clear that Mark Grayson is in for a very different kind of superhero journey. And since Amazon has already ordered multiple seasons of this show, it's a journey we'll get to see unfold even more. There's just so much to take away from a story like this. Too much for one video. It doesn't redefine what it means to be a superhero. In some ways, it simplifies it. Through characters like Adam Eve or Amber, who's Mark's love interest throughout the season, we see that being a good hero doesn't just mean saving the entire world. Sometimes just helping one person, with or without superpowers, is all it really takes. But things get complicated when the scope and scale of heroics gets bigger. Mark sees his father being a hero at the highest possible level, and he tries to match that from the get-go. But in doing so, he learns the hard way just how difficult and brutal it can be. He's constantly facing destruction and death, seeing innocent people get maimed and murdered. And don't forget, he's a teenager. That's some pretty traumatizing shit. It's the kind of thing that tends to get glossed over with other young superheroes in other stories. Sure, Batman and Spider-Man will endure their share of trauma, but it's almost always tempered or sanitized, never being more brutal than a PG-13 movie would allow. Invincible, both the comics and the show, basically throws all that brutality in Mark's face, as well as the audience, sometimes literally. And it's not pretty. It both complicates what it means to be a superhero, while also exposing the harsh reality of it all. It's not just that things can get ugly when you're as powerful as Omni-Man and you want to save the world. You can have the power, the legacy, and the costume to be the hero you want to be. You can literally have everything going for you, as Mark did. And you can still fail. It can still leave you bloody, bruised, and broken. literally and figuratively. But if you still want to be a superhero after all that, well, that's where true heroism reveals itself. As a lifelong superhero fan, I can't help but appreciate the unique insights that Invincible offers. The comics took a very different approach in telling this story, not shying away from the violence and brutality that comes with being a superhero. For that reason, this was another one of those comics that I thought could never become a show, animated or otherwise. But given how Amazon brought The Boys to life, I think it's fitting that they once again succeeded with Invincible. This show captures the heart, spirit, and yes, even the violence of the comic that inspired it. With the current state of superhero media, I feel like this is a story that needs to be told. A story of how painful, messy, and violent being a good hero can be. Because even though Mark is so powerful and he calls himself invincible, he's still so very vulnerable. And I look forward to seeing how his story plays out. If you haven't already, please check this show out on Amazon Prime. Also, check the comics out as well. It'll help you appreciate what this show accomplished even more. I'll leave some links in the description. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Because like it or not, none of us are truly invincible.